brought to you by Charity Mobile, the phone company that supports life and family. 5% of your monthly plan price goes to your favorite charity. Buy the way you believe at CharityMobile.com and use promo code TRADITION. The faith is on life support in many places. The signs are there. Almost any country you look at, the faithful going to Mass on a regular basis, that number is shrinking. In some places, they've gotten so loose with defining what regular Mass attendance means that they now count as faithful Catholics, the ones who are living their faith, as people who attend Mass once or twice a month, let alone every Sunday. 50 years ago, somebody attending Mass only once or twice a month, without a very good reason for it, would have probably been denied the sacraments. But now, they're considered the cream of the crop. I've talked about this before in talking about statistical situations of the faith in France and Italy and other places, where in some of those places, we're down to 4% of Catholics going to Mass. In the United States, it's not that much better, but the trend line is the same. Fewer and fewer people are going. And what's the solution to this? The great solution, we're told by the bishops, is to further double down on synodality and the secularization of the church, to make the church more relevant to the modern world. And no better example of this thinking is in a recent story that comes to us from where else but Germany, the home of the German Synodal Way. The only difference between the German Synodal Way and the Synod on Synodality is that the German Synodal Way is just very in your face addressing these heterodox, heretical issues that activists want the church to adopt, instead of having Cardinal Fernandez issue documents while having the Synod of Synodality talk about these issues. The Vatican does them themselves. But at least in Germany, the bishops are taking responsibility directly for it. And they're cutting out the middleman, who in this case is, for the most part, lay participation. It's a much more honest way of doing this. And you're going to get some insight here as to why they're doing this. They believe that the church can only save itself by going more and more secular. If that sounds like a contradiction, it is. Headline from Catholic News Agency. Germany, now a mission country, Bishop Botzing says amid declining Catholic numbers. Bishop Georg Botzing is the head of the German Synodal Way. He is the person arguing most of the time with Rome. Rome has repeatedly told the Germans not to do what they're doing alone, to go along with the universal church. They wanted the James Martin blessings. They advocated that for years before Francis gave that to them. In fact, they were the biggest celebrators of the James Martin blessings outside of James Martin and his various organizations that he's tied to that do the evil work that he does. The Botzing is the one who wants laity managing parishes. He wants laity choosing who the bishop will be. He wants laity making the final say on who becomes a priest. He wants laity preaching the gospel on Sundays. He is a radical's radical among the modernists. And now he is lamenting that people are walking away from the faith. The numbers who have walked away, as you're going to hear in this, are remarkable in Germany. This is the effect of modernism on the church. It leaves many people thinking, what's the point? Because anybody who thinks about what you hear being preached from modernists or soft modernists, those who don't really understand what it is they're preaching, most people understand when they hear this stuff that there's an incoherency to it. So what's the point? These bishops should try Catholicism instead. It's a radical notion. From the article, quote, "The German Bishops' Conference president has called Germany, a nation whose very history is entangled with the Catholic Church, a mission country. In an interview with the Society of the Divine Word's German language magazine, Bishop Georg Botzing of Limburg said, 'We live in a missionary country when we realize that less than half of Germany's citizens still belong to the Christian denominations.' According to CNA Deutsch, CNA's German language news partner, Botzing said evangelization had been a central theme since Pope John Paul II and also for Pope Francis. The German prelate continued, but the other half are not simply faithless or don't ask questions, and in this respect I believe we need to do much more. We should get in touch with these people, talk to them without being intrusive. These times of omission with a negative tone are over, but speaking and answering questions about the hope that fills us, as the letter to the Hebrews says, is part of Christianity." End quote. people have walked away. They saw in 2020 the church align itself with the secular authorities. They saw the church allow the sacraments to be declared not essential to your daily life in those trying times. So of course people walked away. They got used to watching Mass on TV. And then they stopped watching Mass on TV. Maybe they come back for Christmas or Easter, but many of them don't come back at all. That's the track record across the Western world when the church fails to stand up and do what it needs to do. And by the church here, I mean actually, of course, the faithless prelates, those who are essentially Episcopal atheists, as Father Heimerl, the Austrian priest, said in a recent letter of his that I covered here on this channel. This is the effect. And here's some raw numbers for you to give you an idea how bad this is. Back to the article. Quote, the statistics for Germany are revealing. Botzing has led the Diocese of Limburg since 2016 and the German Bishops' Conference since 2020. In 2016, more than 630,000 Catholics resided in Limburg. By 2022, this number has dropped to fewer than 540,000. The Catholic population in Germany, a nation of about 83 million people, has significantly decreased. In 2020, there were approximately 22.19 million Catholics. However, by 2022, this number had dropped to about 20.94 million. Researchers paint a stark picture of the future. In 2019, a project of scientists at the University of Freiburg predicted that the number of Christians paying the church tax in Germany would halve by 2016. 3 years later, in 2022, more than 500,000 baptized Catholics left the church. Figures released by the German Bishops' Conference confirmed. At the time, Botzing stated on his diocese's website that the alarming figures underscored the need for continued cultural change in the implementation of the German Synodal Way resolutions. However, the German Synodal Way, which has advocated for significant changes to traditional church teachings since 2019, has not stemmed the dramatic decline in Catholic numbers. A 2021 report by CNA Deutsch noted that 1 in 3 Catholics in Germany were considering leaving the church. The reasons for leaving varied, with older people citing the church's handling of the Ted McCarrick problem, and younger people pointing to the obligation of paying church tax, according to one earlier study. End quote. Who would think that the mandatory church tax imposed by the state would actually lead to people leaving the church? Now, the Catholic Church has actually always had interesting things to say about your responsibility to tithe. But those with the least amount to give were usually not typically expected to give all that much. Once you put the state involved in this, because that's how it works in Germany, the state collects the church tithe and then gives it to the bishops. Once you do that, that changes the dynamic entirely. And it puts the church in a sort of servant relationship with the state. Very disordered and unnatural relationship that the church has with the state in that country. But you know something here. The solution to this apostasy, according to the German bishops, is more apostasy. It's more heresy. Is to change the church's teachings on things. When someone advocates for changing the church's teaching on things, note that they are coming out as overtly hostile to Big T tradition and to, of course, the deposit of the faith itself. All of the hot-button issues that the church takes the wrong side of in the eyes of the world all have their roots in Scripture. All of them, including what I have to call on this platform, the Moloch ritual, or the James Martin sin, or even clerical celibacy. It's all in Scripture, all of it. And yet here we are, with German bishops thinking they're going to change hearts and minds by further secularizing the faith, when the reality is the only places in the church thriving are the hardline traditional parishes. That's it. The difference here is if Rome and if the bishops would stand up and oppose secular movements in the world, that would restore faith in a lot of people. It would cause a lot of people who think that the world is right to maybe at least consider the alternative if the church used its teaching authority properly. But unfortunately, those in those offices in the church who have that authority to do so refuse to use it. And so this crisis will continue and continue and continue until something forces the hand of the bishops to, in desperation, defend the faith. It might not be this crop of bishops, it might be their successors. But I'm reminded of the prophecy, if you want to call it that, of then Father Ratzinger, the future Benedict XVI, who in the late 1960s said that the church would sometime in the not distant future be reduced to essentially a handful of believers living the faith in the underground church. That's what he predicted. We probably will be the ones who get to witness it really happen as this apostasy, this people leaving the faith, happens in larger and larger numbers. I don't see anything turning this around in the immediate future. Do you? Let me know in the comments, please. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. So does sharing this on social media. That helps too. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.